In this video, we're going to talk about semantic tags and what is that word? What does that mean? So let me see if I can give you an example. And here I am in W3 Schools talking about semantic tags. All right, we're going to have several tags, quite a number of tags that are going to give us the ability to group together types of information, types of elements that we might have. Let me just start with the ones that make sense, and then we can sort of dive into the other ones. Let's look at nav. Now, if you look at the word nav, I'm guessing that the first word that comes to you would be navigation. And so what you would expect is that this tag has something to do with navigation, and that's what semantic means. Semantic means if I look at the word, it's going to give me a visual indication of what that element is going to be doing. What is that element? It looks like it's probably containing a nav. And so we can see sort of a little graph here of where these semantic tags sort of suggest to go, right? If we see a footer, we assume that a footer is just that, a footer at the bottom of the page, and a header is at the top of the page. That is opposed to something like a div or a span, which really doesn't have any meaning when we look at that. And divider, maybe, span, not really sure. So these are called non-semantic. If we read them, we don't really know what their intentions are. But if we read the semantic tags, we have a pretty good idea of what their intentions are supposed to be. So let's start with the nav, and let me explain a little bit about what's going on with these tags. They're not like other tags we've dealt with so far. So here on my page, I have something I don't need to be looking at. There we go. I have a starting web page, and on this page, I have the pertinent information, the pertinent beginnings. I have a head tag, a title tag. I have my information. Boy, that's definitely not the right date, but okay, that's what you get for copying and pasting from past work. All right. So again, this is an intro to semantic tags, which is really not really important in the big scheme of this video. All right, so here's what is. If I look at these anchor tags, hopefully you're looking at that and recognizing that's probably a navigation system on my page, right? That's where this is how we link to the home page and how we link to the hobbies page. All right, so let's look back in our W3 Schools, and we're going to look at semantic tags. So what might we think about right off the bat when we're looking at this menu style system? Well, I think that looks like it might be a nav. That nav seems to be a way to describe our menu system. So what we're going to do is we're going to what we call wrap our anchor tags inside a nav tag. And all that means is we're going to make the nav tag the parent, and then we're going to make our anchor tags the children, and we're going to tab in order to keep our children tabbed within the parents. So now that we've done that, let's save the code and let's see what our page looks like. So we went from here to here. All right, so the nav itself isn't doing a whole lot on our page. It looks like it gave us this line break automatically because now our footer got pushed down below. But other than that, it's not adding any extra styling. It's not making it bold like our H1 tag would do. So what we're learning is that we have these semantic tags that enable us to group together other codes that are related to the word semantic tag, and that gives it meaning. So if we were to look back here again and we look at some of our choices, we have a footer tag. Well, footer makes sense. That seems like something that would go at the bottom of our page. So we'll wrap this one in a footer because that is what its intention was to be the footer on this page. And so I'm going to put that in the bottom, and then I'm going to indent everything so that I have all the children nested along the same even keel here. These are all indented on the same line. Then the children are indented again evenly with each other. Excellent. All right, so now I'm going to save this and see if there's any changes to my web page. And there really isn't. So we're going to see ways that we can really benefit from these semantic tags beyond what we're doing here. But remember, HTML is simply a structure, and we'll learn soon how to give it design. So semantic tags are ways for us to organize and group our code, group elements, maybe lots of elements. Maybe we might have a paragraph in here, but it gives us the ability to nest some children and give it some kind of meaning. That's where we're at the moment. All right, so the next thing I want to share with you is let's go ahead and validate this. So I have nav and I have a footer, and I want to go into my validator and validate the code that I've just created. So I'm going to do that, paste it in here and hit check. Excellent. Okay. So it doesn't like the fact that I have 2 meta tags on here. That was certainly done in error. Good thing I validated, huh? It was upset because I had 2 meta char sets UTF-8. So let's erase it just to make sure that I'm doing, I'm being able to clear my error. And now I'm getting my error clear. So before I forget, I'm going to come back in here and erase that second erroneous meta tag that was in duplicate. I'm going to save it, and now I know that I'm validating. All right, here's what I wanted to show you. That was not my intention, but there we go. Life happens. This footer tag, semantically, it makes sense. Semantically as a footer, and you and I would think the first thing we would do is put a footer at the bottom of the page. Now, here's what I want you to be aware of. This semantic tag that suggests that this is footer content, if I move that to the top of this page, hopefully you're getting uncomfortable with that because you're saying, oh my gosh, a footer doesn't belong at the top of our page. And I would say, yeah, you're absolutely right. But the question is, will it validate? And that's what I'm going to try next. So it looks like it validates. So again, a footer is just a semantic tag. It doesn't mean it's going to validate if you put it anywhere on the page. It doesn't matter where it is. It's still going to validate because it's syntactically correct. But if you are reading it as a human, you're going to be uncomfortable with that because semantically, it doesn't make sense. Semantically, a footer should be at the bottom. So you want to put them in the place that makes sense, right? So I also want to add an error that I see students make a lot. And so I want to bring it to your attention so that way, if I show it to you, it won't be confusing. And that's this header tag. All right, so I'm going to show you that the header tag is very easy to get confused with the head tag. Remember that the head tag is strictly for information for the browser. And the body tag follows, which isn't indented properly, the body tag follows the head tag and it's information for the viewer to see. It is not a header tag. So a header tag goes in here. This was the proper place for a header. That makes sense. It's at the top of the page, right? So a header goes at the top. And there might be specific information, like a banner type thing. Could you put a nav inside a header? Possibly. Let's see if it validates. So I'm going to try it. This is how you should be a curious programmer. Will that validate? Is that such a thing? Well, let me see. Let's go into our validator and let's just paste that code in here. I'm just going to erase all of this, paste it in here, and let's see if it validates. So it does validate. You can certainly do that if you want to. So nesting semantic tags in semantic tags is perfectly acceptable. What is not acceptable would be putting the header in the head tag. So this isn't going to validate. Let's try it. So I'm going to copy that in, Control-All and delete, and Control-V to paste that in, and let's see what we get. Oh, now I'm definitely getting an error because the header tag does not belong in the head tag. Another similar error that people make quite often is the thought that a nav is, like at the top of our page. And so oftentimes students mistakenly will put the nav inside the head tag. So indenting, let's get these indented the right way. Shift tab. All right, one more time. So this also is a common mistake that students make. They put the nav inside the head tag. Let's see. Is the nav something that just the browser needs information to navigate? No, this is for our users to navigate. It's not information that the browser needs. So let's go ahead and validate this and see what happens. Let's see if I can get away with that. So I'm going to check. And again, I'm getting an error message. So this is why I tell you to validate, because even though it displays properly on your page, let me save it and demonstrate that it will, it's still going to display the way we want it to, but that doesn't mean it's okay. It's not a valid syntax, and we don't want to leave it this way and certainly not turn it in this way. So I'm going to put it back in here, and let's tab those in properly. All right, and so lastly, let's take a quick peek at the non-semantic tags. I think we have a good idea of what's going on here with the semantic tags. And you can always come down here and look at different examples, and you can click on try it yourself, and it kind of gives you a visual of some of those things. So I want to explore what the non-semantic tags do then? You said that we also have a div and a span, which really doesn't have any meaning, and they don't. But the div and the span tags were along in HTML long before the semantic tags. So these are the newer players. These guys have been around a long time. But as developers, we've decided that we would prefer to have tags that have meaning as opposed to tags that have no meaning. We don't really know what they do, but they're still organizing chunks of code. So how do they behave? How are they different? And are they still relevant? Yeah, they're still around. They're still all over the place. So let's look and see what they do. To save time and for me fat fingering stuff on the screen here, I'm going to just copy and paste in a div that I created. Let's see if I can get these indented properly. All right, so I have this H1 tag inside and a paragraph tag with a whole long line of text over here that we can't even fit on the screen here. And I have them grouped together with a div. Now a div is just like a semantic tag in its behavior. So let's look and see what it does. So I'm going to go ahead and save this and look and see what we have. Okay, so putting these side by side, let's explore what we have going on just to be sure we're clear. So we have the header tag, which has a nav tag and anchor tags. Now, it really doesn't look a whole lot different as far as the web page is concerned. It's still just our anchor tags. Well, again, we'll see ways that this is going to really benefit us when we start talking about styling our web pages. But for now, we're organizing code according to meaning. We're grouping them together. And we now have a div that has an H1 and some fancy text, and then we have a footer. So what does a div do then? Well, a div is behaving similarly to the header that we saw in the fact that when we put a div on here, we saw a new line break. So many of these tags, like an H1 tag, a div tag, a header tag, a nav tag, all come with inherent line breaks. They just automatically are going to create this spacing as if we had hit an enter key. We call that a block element, B-L-O-C-K. These are all block elements. So the reason why I'm bringing this to your attention is the difference between a div and a span. Well, let me add this to you before I continue on, because this has relevancy to the span. So notice how these anchor tags are all side by side. They are not creating a line break in between language that I just learned is English. So anchor tags are what we call inline. So what that means is, let me just type this out so we can see. So if I make a comment and I say these are inline styles, the anchor tags are inline styles, and the rest of these are what we call, this is why I try to do this ahead of time so I don't have all these fat fingering. We call these block styles. So all block style means is it's going to create an automatic line break in between the element above it and below it. The anchor tag, which is inline, is not doing that. They are putting all of these anchor tags side by side. Image tags are also inline. So if you put an image and some text, they will show up side by side. A span, however, a span is also inline. So if I took this ipsum and I put a div here, let's just do this for a visualization. And I put a div here. I put this word ipsum in a div. Let's just see what's going to happen. And hopefully this will enunciate what I'm trying to share. All right, so I'm going to put ipsum. So now let's see what happens to ipsum. See how ipsum gave this line break between the word beside of it? So it inherently does a line break. So let's try to do span. Div is a block element. Span is an inline element. So if I surround this ipsum with the word span, what we're going to see is it is inline, and so it'll show up side by side. And I appreciate right now you won't really have a huge, why are we doing this? Again, this is just a structure. We'll be able to utilize this functionality when we start playing with styles and cascading style sheets and actually styling our pages, which will be coming up soon enough. But for this video, we wanted to get the idea, what is a semantic element? How does it behave? And what is the difference between a semantic element and a div, and a semantic element as a block element as opposed to a span, anchor tags, and image tags, which are inline?